Guys, welcome back to That Fuzzing Rock Show interviews. We have another very special guest today. Please welcome from the band Memoriam, Karl. Karl, good to see you, my friend.
Fuzz, pleasure to be here this evening. Good to speak with you from the dark and distant Birmingham here in the UK.
Hey, listen, man, and welcome to the show. I appreciate you stopping by to hang out with us. Definitely appreciated. We are here to talk today about the newest release from Memoriam. It's called Rise to Power. It's out now via Reaper Entertainment, and we will get to that in just a bit. Let's get to know you a little bit in the band. How did you guys first get together?
Right. Okay. Well, seems like yesterday, but it wasn't. It was. We got together at the end of 2015. So, this is coming up to our 8th year of doing this. So, we fairly, people say it's a new band, but we've been doing it for a while now. And yeah, we kind of, it was born out of, the tragic, somewhat tragic circumstances. My former band kind of collapsed as a result of the tragic loss of the drummer who died far too young, Martin Kitty Kearns, who had a heart attack as we were preparing to rehearsing to do a small tour of Australia in September 2015, I think it was. So as a result of that, it was a big hole in my life, and
sure,
dark place to be in. When you lose someone that's quite fairly close to you, it just makes you question your own mortality and your own existence.
100%.
It makes you kind of think about what's your own life and what you want to achieve with it. And so I sat down and think, well, what I need, what can I do to pull me out of this dark hole? And the one thing that I have discovered that in my life, I do enjoy being in a band. I do enjoy performing live. I do enjoy creating albums. And it was something that I didn't want to give up doing, stop doing. Could have had that option. The band took that option, and I decided that I didn't want to do that, So, I got together with some of my old mates, got to the previous drummer, Andrew Whale, in, and said, look, he hadn't played drums for a while. Asked him if he wanted to have a little tinker, have a little, bash in the rehearsal room and kind of have a bit of fun. I got my old mate, Frank Healy, who was the bass player for Benediction at that point. And, we've been talking, me and Frank have been talking about doing a band for about, on and off. Those drunken conversations in pubs that you have with your mates and say, we've got to do a band together. But it just never happened. It never happened because my path was going one direction, his was going about. They crossed obviously a lot. Never got around to doing that. So this was an opportunity for me to, kind of pull some of my friends from different places together and start doing a band. And I think it was Whale or Frank that suggested that we get, as a guitarist, we got Scott in because he'd worked with Benediction doing some shows with them in South America because Darren couldn't make it because of work commitment. So he filled in and did some shows for him. And so we knew that he got on with Frank, which is not quite difficult. So we thought, well, they've got dynamics there, and let's just do our aspirations at that point weren't very big. We just thought, well, let's have some fun. Let's go down a rehearsal room. Maybe jam out some old punk rock covers and have a laugh and have a few beers and just try and create a feeling of joy of creating music which I'd lost a little bit. So that was our original idea to do that. So we kind of we hooked up and had a meeting before we headed off to do the rehearsal and form a band, before we had a name or anything, just to meet Scott, because I'd never met him before. And he kind of, in the meeting, he came up with, well, I said, excellent, well, we'll do this, I've got some good ideas. He said, I've got a few of my own songs that you may want to hear, you might like them. So he fired them over to me, and at that point, the punk rock cover band that we intended to do and just have a bit of a laugh, maybe do a few local gigs and maybe release a 7-inch and just no pressure. Suddenly turned into a full-blown band with an album deal, and so it all grew from very, very small kind of aspirations to the kind of the monster that it is 8 years later down the line, and we had a great time doing it. So the whole concept of doing the band was to just have a laugh, have some fun, and create some positivity in an otherwise quite a negative place. And if that was the sole purpose of the band, then we've achieved that, because we are having a ball of a time. It is just a absolute pleasure to be on stage with my friends and do the thing that I love doing. When it all was looks like so negative, and it wasn't going to happen again. So yeah, we're very, very proud and privileged of what we've achieved in the relatively short time that we've been doing this for.
And it's funny you say short time, because this is your 5th full-length release. I know there's a bunch of EPs and shorter stuff, but let's talk about the first album. It was 2017, For the Fallen. Let's talk about that album real quick.
Tell me
a little bit about
that. Debut album, which was recorded off the back of getting a contract with Nuclear Blast. Actually, they kind of signed us without even actually hearing anything, because I think they knew that. Well, Marcus, that ran Nuclear Blast, is an old friend of ours, so he wanted, he wanted to work with us. So he knew that we were probably going to be okay. We kind of know what we're doing. We've been doing it for long enough, so the chances were it was going to do all right. And we signed to Nuclear Blast, and we kind of headed off to the studio where we did demos in the first place and recorded our first opus epic. And it came out really well. We got Dan Seagrave involved with the artwork there. One of the few things in that little meeting that we had prior to going there, he said, well, if we're going to do a band, let's do it properly. What do you want to achieve? And some people said, well, let's do it like the old school way. When we were first in band, let's try and recreate that feeling of that old school death metal vibe back in the late 80s, early 90s, when bands were prolific in writing songs and releasing albums every year. So let's try and recreate that feeling, that tone, and the texture. And Scott said, well, I'd like, it'd be great if we could get Dan Seagrave to do a cover, because that would really fit with the old school death metal vibe that we're trying to create here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Frank approached him, and obviously he'd known him because he'd done some cover artwork for Benediction in the past, and he duly agreed. And so he has become part of our journey. He's been our feature artist on every album we've released to date. Album number 5 being the new one. So it's been an interesting journey. I think each album we've done, we've added to us. It may be the first couple of albums we were kind of trying to find our direction, because we were in the shadow of quite a larger heritage that we had to deal with, and trying to find from the outset, we wanted to set ourselves apart and create our own sense of identity. We just didn't want to emulate what we did in the past. We didn't want to be a tribute band or a carbon copy version of something that has been done for. We wanted really trying to, and there's a four piece. The dynamics of the band were very different as well. So we intentionally set out to create our own sense of identity. And I think it took maybe 2 or 3 albums for us to start to do that. People to start to accept us for what we are rather than what we were, if you know what I mean. Rather irksome, even though it still happens today, which I find quite annoying. But it is what it is. I understand it, and I appreciate that. Probably without what I've done in the past, I wouldn't be in the position to be doing what I'm doing now. So I'm thankful for that. I'm proud of what I've done. But we've worked hard over the years to kind of create Memoriam as a separate standalone entity. I think by album number 3, we did kind of pretty much achieve that. I think once we kind of like found a studio that we were comfortable recording at, and that pretty much comes from working with Russ Russell down at Parlour Studios. A lot of really good bands go down there, and he's a very skilled professional at what he does, and he's got a great sense of humour, which really ultimately at the end of the day, That's what it's all about, is being able to enjoy the time of what you're doing. So he brings that elements, and he was almost for us like the missing factor for us. So by when we kind of like went down there to record our third album, Requiem for Mankind, it kind of clicked. So we got the visuals there with Dan Seagrave, and we got the studio and the sound production side things sorted out. So that's when the formula and the blueprint for moving forward really started to kick in. And I think we've moved forward from those basic, using those formulas, move forward on each album we've done since, bringing in new ideas, trying out new things. And each album adds something more to the layers that we're developing.
Sure. Yeah,
sound
absolutely.
has matured, and as we grow, we've grown maybe more in confidence in what we do as well.
Yeah.
And each album we do gets stronger and stronger. We're going to explode at this rate.
Well, don't do that. Then you'll be in Spinal Tap territory. So there was, you mentioned Requiem. That was in 2019, 2018, Silent Vigil, and then 21 was To the End.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about that for a minute, because that was born, I don't say born, but that was released right in the pandemic.
Right. Yeah. It was just post-pandemic, around that area. So,
right.
Well, the first three albums, we were working at a rapid pace. We delivering an album every year, and that was the original intention to do that. But then this little thing came along and impacted everybody's ability to do anything on the planet. A bit of a global epidemic by the name of COVID. And so as a result of that, we all had to kind of like take a bit of a step back, didn't we, with our lives.
Sure.
I think, generally speaking, it was, okay, a lot of people died. That's quite sad. But for a personal, it gave everyone an opportunity to maybe reflect a bit more on things that are important in their lives.
100%, yeah.
Family and close family, and for spend more time concentrating on things like that. And I think it gave us a bit more appreciation of, because not being able to go out and do gigs or do the things that you love doing, whatever walk of life in, it gave you a bit more appreciation for those things because you were missing from doing them. So, we did it as I think every other musician on the planet did. Because we couldn't do gigs, we all sat down and wrote albums, didn't we? Everybody wrote the album. And that's what we did. We sat down, because we couldn't follow the annual pattern that we'd first set in place, we had to extend it by a further 6 months. So it took us 18 months to release album number 4. During that time, we changed label. We moved from Nuclear Blast over to Reaper Entertainment. We also lost Andrew Whale. He had shoulder injury and decided he wanted to leave the band, so we recruited Spike on drums. So a few changes to the structure of the band, and I think that extra 6 months gave us a little bit more time to work on the song structures, to make them that little bit stronger.
Tweak them, fine tune them,
yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, as a vocalist, in the past, I've always written the lyrics, gone to the studio, delivered them. And sometimes when you've got something in your head, when you've written them down and you go to deliver it, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. The structure's not in place. The words just don't fit right when you in your head they work right on paper, but when you deliver them, it just doesn't. They don't flow properly. So a lot of times, sometimes in the past, you spend a lot of time faffing about in the studio, rewriting bits or trying to make things structure. However, with COVID, it gave us that opportunity, that extra 6 months for me to go and do a bit of demoing with the vocals, which is something I've never had the opportunity to do in the past. So I went to Scott's studio, Riff Central, and we demoed the vocals. And for me, it was great because it gave me the chance to rehone the lyrics, rewrite the words if they didn't fit, make sure that the structures did fit and what I was in my head did go with the music properly. So when we did finally get to the studio to record it, everything was in place. All I had to do 100% was concentrate on the delivery of the vocals. I knew the words were right, I knew the structures were right. Just concentrate purely on delivery. And I think that's really enhanced the last two albums, vocal wise, from my that's all I can really talk about because that's what I do. So from a vocal perspective, having the ability to spend a bit extra time, have an extra 6 months, really enhanced the final product of what we came out with. So moving forward, we've used that 18 months gap, that schedule. We've taken that on board, and we used it again with this album, Rise to Power, and we'll use it again with album number 6 as well when we get round to writing that. So, gotcha. When I get round to it, we've written it already. So he's there. I've just got to spend some time doing the vocals. The 90% of the music, the structure is all in place. So we're moving again. We're moving forward at a phenomenally fast pace. But yes, and album number 6 will be out again in about 18 months' time. So that's really worked for us. That structure of writing songs. COVID was, had a positive impact in that respect, So, and the release of To the End, 21 was a big step forward for us,
Sure. Now, I think that as far as I mean, obviously there was a bunch of negativity surrounding COVID, but I think honestly the two things thrived in that, and that was the takeout food industry and music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there is such a push after everything kind of settled down and we could get back in the studio and they started doing live performances again. It seemed like there was just this flood of music, and it was almost overwhelming. And me doing what I do, I'm just like, I just had interview after interview and just talking to bands, and so this is your new stuff. It seemed like
everyone had new stuff. That's the thing.
Yes,
it was like a tsunami of new music that hit the planet from all genres, from everywhere. All musicians did exactly the same.
Yeah,
but I mean, one of the strong things about the COVID and the impact of us all being isolated in our own little work bubbles was that we kind of like took to social media platforms, and I think we got to engage with people maybe we wouldn't have talked to or on a normal basis, and engage on a wider. I think those communities that developed online really helped support everyone through it, and made people feel a little bit more connected. So I think they were very, very positive. We found that a lot of people, because they knew that we were struggling because we couldn't do gigs, we get things like that. People supported us, throughout that COVID, and our merchandise sales, which I do, went through the roof because people because they weren't going to gigs, they were buying merch and really helping and showing their support for the band in that way, which is great. It was quite life affirming and quite kind of reassuring to know that people cared and were willing to support us through that difficult time. But when it finally all stopped and we kind of like managed to kind of like get out of the house and start engaging with people face to face and start doing gigs, for us it was okay, we couldn't play outside of the UK, but for a 6-month period where we could at least play gigs in the UK. We couldn't travel abroad, but being able to play gigs in our own territory was relatively something quite new, because we don't do a lot of shows in the UK. We maybe do 1 or 2 a year. All the shows we do are predominantly on mainland Europe, which we are no longer a part of. So there we go. That's a different story. But so we got to play quite a few shows in the UK and re-engage with our UK fan base and friends, and that was great, And the first show we did was just show just up the road from us, a festival called Bloodstock, which is quite big, and you could feel, it was palpable, the sheer joy of people being able to go out and do the thing they enjoy doing, playing a gig, going to a festival. The weather was fantastic, and the sheer joy of doing that was really good. You could feel it, and being on stage after all that and playing that gig was a phenomenal experience that I'll never forget. Brilliant times. And then obviously it started to open up, and we started to be able to go abroad again and do shows in our main territories, which Germany, all those kind of countries. And that was great to re-engage and get back to normal. It was a great experience. And I think people just generally took that the fact they kind of hadn't been able to do it, you know, and I think that people's enthusiasm was a lot more appreciation of the situation, being able to do it again. Was you know, you could see it, you know, and so I think, you know, in retrospect, it's done everyone good, you know, having a bit of a loss and a break from doing things, and you know, it's made people appreciate it a little bit more. But Absolutely. As a result, a negative result of it, at this point in time, the whole market is bloody flooded with records being released and bands touring. It's a nightmare in a town where maybe, you know, a band that you'd like to see would come through maybe once a month or something like that, you know, so you can choose what you do. No, there's bands playing every night. So it's really difficult. Has impacted on attendances at gigs, I think, to a certain extent.
Sure.
You know?
Oh yeah.
So it swings and roundabouts, and at the end of the day, you know, but it's all good. It's all good. We're still doing it. We're still enjoying it. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. That's right. So let's talk about you real quick, and you personally. What originally got you into wanting to be a musician?
Yeah, I think it's a number of factors, really. I wouldn't consider myself a musician. I can't play anything. I've got absolutely zero musical skill or ability.
I mean, the voice is your instrument, though.
I am a rhythmical shouter. That's what I do. That is my trade. I'm good at writing words and making things rhyme and shouting it out rhythmically. My skill is engaging with people. That's what I'm kind of very good at. But yeah, I mean, I come from a background of a musical family. My dad in the 60s was a band agent, so he used to book bands at clubs around the UK. So very often musicians would be on the phone or come to our house and collect their money and things like that. So I was quite aware of all these people coming around. My brothers, who are, you know, 20 years older than me, they were all in bands in the 60s as well. So then they toured and did gigs and things like that. So I was aware of that whole life being a potential possibility of something that could be done. You know, a lot of people grow up and think, you know, see their dad being working in an office or a factory, and that's really all they see is a possibility. But I saw that as a potential of something that could do, and yeah, I kind of like fell into. Well, yeah, I kind of was really into the old anarcho punk scene in Birmingham. We used to go to a pub regularly, virtually every weekend, called the Mermaid, which is quite legendary in the old Birmingham punk scene, you know, and yeah, bands like Napalm Death used to play every week, you know, and all the old anarcho grind punk bands used to go through there. And I was a big fan of a band called Sacrilege, which Frank used to be in, and Spike was in at some point as well in the past. And I always remember, I almost had this light bulb moment. It was, you know, when I was 21, it was actually on my 21st birthday, down the Mermaid, watching Sacrilege on stage. And I had that kind of like epiphany, thinking, oh, I'd like to do that. I could do that. You know, I quite like the idea of standing on stage and shaking my head about and shouting and playing some really heavy music. I thought, I could do that. And it was around that stage where my mates, Whale, who was in a punk band called Urban Chaos, he started playing with a band called Bolt Thrower. And, you know, they kind of were doing okay. So I became their driver. I could drive. So I used to drive them to gigs, you know, drive to do PL sessions, drive to gigs. And that was my job. And I was quite happy doing that. And, you know, it came to, I think it was about 2 weeks before our first album was supposed to be recorded, and the then vocalist decided that he couldn't commit to himself on a long-term basis to the band. So 2 weeks to go, they decided that they needed to find a vocalist, and yeah, because I could drive and I knew them, not through any skill ability, I kind of got the job by default, if you know what I mean. So I kind of fell into being a musician by accident, happy accident, and it all kind of rolled from there, you know. And here I am, you know, 35 years down the line later, still doing it. You know, I had a few years out and stopped doing it for a while in the mid-90s, And I think that maybe that little bit of absence of not doing it maybe gives me the appreciation of it even more so, of doing it now. So yeah, 30 odd years down the line, here I am still doing it, and it probably enjoying it more so now than I ever have done in the past, because
That's good though. That's a good thing.
I've seen that journey that I've been through. I've seen the past, and I think I'm at that point in my life, that age where I appreciate things for what they are, and feel quite privileged and honoured to be able to do it. So, cheers, great.
There you go. So that brings us from when you first started at 21 to today's date. The new album, it's called Rise to Power. It's available now via Reaper Entertainment. Check your streaming platforms for availability. Let's talk about the album. You said it took like 18 months to kind of get it all together. What is the band's writing process? How does that work?
Yeah, well, and we are pretty much driven by the riff master, which is Mr. Scott Fairfax. He is the powerhouse behind our prolific song writing process. He lives for the riff. He lives for writing music. That's all he does. He's got a daytime job. Then he'll come home from work, head straight into his studio every night and at the weekends. And all he does, he writes. He won't watch shit television or just anything like that. All he does is writes music. So as a result of that, we have got what we call the $1 million riff vault, which is rammed full of these songs, which are semi-structured or part-structured or just riffs which we can link together.
Sure.
And as a result of that, we've got absolutely loads of stuff we can draw on a regular basis. So once we recorded, released an album, is done, we then start to concentrate on the following album, the next album. So the writing process almost is like flows on continually. It's a continual basis. So much so that we were actually at Riff Central Studio last week, compiling and structuring the songs for album number 6. This album's only just been released, but we've already got the songs 90% in place musically, not vocally, for the next album. So that's how fast we kind of work. That's kind of pace that we drive forward, and that's purely down to the creativity that is Mr. Scott Fairfax. He's the driver behind why we can do things at such a fast pace, and it really, really works for us really well. That's
good. So let's say you're talking about the 6th album with the 5th for a minute.
Yes, steady.
Let's talk about some of the new tracks. Now, I know this is like kind of asking you which one of your kids is your favorite, but do you have any favorites on the album?
What's your favorite child?
Mine is my son, because I only have one, so it's perfect for me.
Well, that's easy for you, isn't it?
That's my top out, by the way.
It's a difficult one, and there's 8 tracks on the album, and I think on any given day I'll probably like one of the songs more than the others. They change around, and there's certain parts of songs that I specifically like as well, which makes it quite a difficult thing to choose. But I think if I was forced to pick my favorite 2 or 3 tracks off this album, I would probably start with the closing track. This Pain is probably my favorite track off the album because of the huge epic nature of it. Always with our albums, we end with a big epic song. We did it on the last album, As My Heart Grows Cold. Did it on the first album, Last Words. And those are always the ones that seem to, for me, get the hairs on back of my neck, that resonate more strongly with me. So, and lyrically, it's quite strong. It's about suffering and pain that we all go through in our lives. I think we can all relate to that, and the way that it makes us, we have to get through it and we grow stronger. And those experiences are the things that make us who we are. How you deal with these things. It's not the pain that's the thing, it's the way you deal with it that makes you who you are. So that's the lyrical content of that is
I actually have in my notes, it says, "This pain rounds out this album perfectly." I did take notes on it, and that it's the perfect end to this album. If you guys, when you go get it, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Yeah.
It flows. I mean, it kind of, one thing I think with this album I'll point out is the fact that it probably flows better than any of the albums we've done in the past. Sometimes, you know, we've told a story, and sometimes the songs don't gel together so well. As once a song will jump out and think, wow, which is good. But this album, I think, flows really, really well, because we are children of vinyl. So we always kind of plan it as side A, side B, so they kind of flow together in that kind of respect. So as you say, this playing is a monumental closing track to the album, and as a result, its big epicness is the reason why I potentially think it's my favourite one, but it'll probably change tomorrow. I also quite like, I mean, I've gone, let's say 3 or 4 now. Again, with the same respect, it's the first track as well. The impact of the first track is huge for me, and one of the, you know, never again, 6 Million Dead, song about the Holocaust, absolutely emotive subject to write about, something I feel really, really proud to have actually finally got around to writing about. It's a song that I've been trying to write for years and years. I've been trying to write a song about that subject matter, but it's something that's so difficult to write about without sounding cheesy or just not giving the subject matter the gravity and the emotional context that it deserves. So it's a song I've written in the past, I've tried to write and just shelved. It wasn't working. It didn't sound right. Couldn't do it. Didn't feel confident enough in it. But this time around, I heard that riff, that kind of really, I guess men, women, and children. That bit, that emotive kind of real melancholy, sad kind of guitar hook, and I thought that's the one. I can make it work with that. And I wrote it about a year ago. Round about the time where there's the annual Holocaust Memorial Day, and there's lots of documentaries on television and news articles and people with first-hand experience, of the horror of the concentration camps, and that really impacted on me. So I took a lot of the words from that song directly from these people that experienced it. That's why they work so well, because they're real, real world words. So I'm really proud of that song. Finally got to write a song it's been my bugbear for years, and I think it's really important to make statements about things like this, especially with the global rise of Holocaust denial, which comes hand in hand with that kind of like nationalistic right-wing ideology, which seems prevalent, plaguing on our planet. So that's another song I'm very proud of. Probably I quite like I Am the Enemy as well. I like that because it's got my bit of poetry in it. It's got my bit of, every album I insert a verse from the poem For the Fallen, first album title, from Lawrence Binion. That famous poem, "They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old, age shall not weary them, as we ears can them," which I've used in the past in some of the context. Well, every Memoriam album contains a song with a verse from that poem in it at some point within the album. Something I like to do, continuity throughout all the albums. So on this album, the opening verse to "I Am the Enemy" is that bit of that poem. I'm really pleased I got it into that one, because it fits really, really well. Probably absolutely it fits. So I'm pleased with that one. I like the end of The Conflict Is Within as well, with the slow bit at the end as well. I mean, I could probably say a bit about every single song on the album. There's certain parts of it that really resonate with me, and I can remember doing them. But overall, very, very proud, very pleased with the way it's all come together. Very strong album, a good step forward for us. We've tried out different ideas. We've kind of got different tones, different textures, lots of melody on there as well, which is a kind of new kind of angle that we've gone down. One thing that's got to be mentioned, I think, is Spike T. Smith. He's drumming on this album has really made it what it is, as of the last album as well. Yes. The difference is really that Spike was only with us for about 6 weeks before we had to record the last album, so he didn't really get much chance to learn the songs. So he didn't really get much chance to put his own stamp of authority on them. This album now, 18 months down the line, he knows the songs, he's part of the songs. He definitely has stamped his authority and his style over them, and which again has made the album what it is. So there's a number of factors which have helped us to progress and push the band forward, and it's all good, all good.
The other one that's a standout on that album is Total War. And that's the song. There's always a song on the album that just comes out swinging, and that's it. That one comes out swinging.
After the impact of the first song, it's relentless, isn't it? Yeah, you kind of maybe think we might slow it down a bit or calm down, but no, there's no respite, is there? You're going to go straight into Total War, which is absolute full on old school death metal. You get what it says on the can. You can't get more old school death metal than Total War. Very, very much inspired by what's going on. I don't even need to explain to people what it's about. It's about the war, Total War, which is occurring right here, right now, on our doorstep in Europe, in Eastern Europe, with the neo-fascist invasion by the Russians of a sovereign state of
the Ukraine. Yeah, it's terrible.
Under the false pretense of denazification, which is ridiculous. Anyhow, but yeah, so it's directly influenced by that, as are quite a lot of the songs on the album. It seems to me I've developed a bit of a history of writing songs about the subject matter, which is war. You may or may not noticed. It's almost my default kind of thing. In fact, 30 to 25 years or whatever it was, I couldn't write anything. I wasn't allowed to write anything about anything else. That was all the only thing I could write about.
Yeah, right.
So I do enjoy writing about other things now, but on this album more so, those inspirations of what's going on in the world has come to the front. And it's just ironic, really, that I've written songs and lyrics about war for about 30 years, and now at this point in time they just seem more relevant now than they ever. They've got more resonance and real relevance to what's going on. I would never have imagined that happening, and so that's the sad irony of the situation. So there we are. There we are. What we have with Rise to Power. Of course, can't fail to mention the title track. Again, quite a strong song with an anthemic, fist banging, sing along end section to it. It's got a really weird time structure, which I'm bound to get wrong when I play it live.
Yep.
Bound to get that wrong when we play it live. Just you watch.
And Rise to Power is actually the first single that was released from the album, right? Was the title track?
No, it's album. That's the third. The first one was All Is Lost.
Okay.
Which was what we did a full length feature video. Again, something we've never done before. Something I've been doing it for 30 years. I've never done or been involved with releasing a full length feature video, which has won awards as well, which is great. So we got like an independent production company, Eulogy Media, and they got a script and they got actors in, and we got wardrobe, and we filmed it over 2 days at different locations. Never did anything like that before in 30 years of doing this, and that experience was great. I had a really good time doing it.
Right?
Yeah, and so it's nice that at this point in our lives we can still do things that are new and experience new things, which is quite rare these days, isn't it? So so that was All Is Lost. That was the first video single. Then that was followed up by Total War, which was the second one, and then the third one, which was released last week, was the title track, Rise to Power, which were both just standard lyric videos, which do the job.
Sure. All is Lost. I think in my notes here, I said this is one that seems to be written to guarantee the crowd gets moving live.
Absolutely,
because that does seem like it's got that momentum to really make the circle and make the circle move.
Absolutely, it's got a bit of a curveball in there from my perspective, though. The riff in there is almost bordering on black metal. There's a riff in there, and I would have never thought in my career that a song that I was involved with or a band that I was writing would incorporate that style.
I can see that. Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, it's a bit different because once I put my vocals on it, it just changed the dynamics of it. But it's great. We are kind of quite willing to take on board these different things and try out different textures and tones. And if it works in a song, and it fits, then we use it, and that's
Absolutely.
so it's got that little element in all his lost, which is a bit of a surprise, but it works. So I'll be pleased with it.
So do you guys have any plans of touring to support the album?
Touring is not for us. We are too old for touring.
All
I think
I see.
the whole concept of jumping on a tour bus and doing an extended tour of a territory for 30 dates bears no glory to me. Kind of done that in the past. It was great. But now, at this point in our lives, it's something we're just not going to do. We are quite busy. We've got different. Sure. We've all got jobs. We're not dependent on this as our sole source of income, so it doesn't put those pressures on us. So we've got jobs, we've got kids, we've got, mom's got dementia, so we've got all these different outside responsibilities in our lives, and this is just a nice welcome relief and release from those everyday struggles that we all have. We can all relate to that, can't we? But yeah, we do. We are proud weekend warriors. That's what we do. We kind of jump on a plane on a Friday. We'll fly out to some Central European hub. We'll do 2 or 3 shows, and then we'll fly home on a Monday. And that's fine. And we'll do that maybe every other weekend or once a month. So say we are quite busy doing that. And that keeps us satisfied, and we can control the what we do. Obviously, if something was to come our way and we've got a reasonable offer from us that was, financially and logistically achievable, then never say never. But to this point, we haven't really had any offers that really take our fancy. So we're just going to push on doing it our way and the way that works for us and the way that we like doing it. It's all about having fun and enjoying it, which is the original idea in the very first place, and we maintain that ethos.
100%. So now, do you have anything? I've taken way too much of your time as it is. Do you have anything else to tell the folks before we wrap this up?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening and supporting us throughout the ages. See what I did there? And we do appreciate it, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do that. So thank you very much for all your support and continued support. Long may that last. Hope you enjoyed the album. We enjoyed making it, so I hope you enjoy listening to it. We are in the process of writing album number 6, which should be out in 18 months' time. So hopefully I shall speak to you again around about that time first in 18 months. Let's book it in our diaries right now.
Sounds good to me. So you guys can check out the new one from Memoriam. It's called Rise to Power. It's out now via Reaper Entertainment. Check your streaming platforms for availability. For more info, you guys can go to memoriamuk.com, facebook.com/memoriamuk. Twitter and Insta are at Memorial UK. You can also check out reapermusic.de, and their Facebook and Insta is Reaper Entertainment. Twitter is Reaper Entertain.
Absolutely. We're very, very active on social media platforms. So do reach out, try and contact us. And who knows, maybe one of the days we might eventually even get to tour or do some shows in the good old US of A. Who knows?
Let's hope for sure. Karl, listen, man, it has been my absolute pleasure to talk to you. And thank you for taking the time out to hang out with me today. And I will see you in 18 months.
Absolutely. Make it a date.
All right. We're going to stamp that on the calendar. Karl, again, appreciate it. Guys, this is Karl from Memoriam. Thank you.
Nice one first. Pleasure to talk to you. All the best.